probably ones that everyone will ask. So I figure we'll knock out some of these more universal ones, and then we'll get into some specifics. But this first question that I want to ask you, because I know you've done this, people outside of sales so rarely do this, is leaving an organization when things are good, right? Often people, as long as things are going well, they don't even dream about leaving, right? Most people would stay with their organization for 40 years if nothing got uncomfortable or bad. But in sales, that's actually very rarely the case. You often leave even when things are going great, or they've gone well, or you're still loved, because something is different. So what are your initial, I want to hear both your general thoughts, but I also want to hear about maybe your personal story with Toggl and everything else. What are your thoughts on how you know it's time to leave? It's time to make the next change.
Yeah, that's a great question to start on. And it's going to be a fun one too, because there's some anecdote that can play into this very nicely. So like both times that I've left these major like milestone jobs that I've had in my career, first moving up from SDR to SDR team manager to building up the team lead at Toggl. It's like in both of these cases, I'd built up a very good internal brand. I was making good money, and I was like happy and proficient in the actual work that I was doing. And in both cases, it was still completely the correct decision to leave and pursue a new opportunity. And I feel like there's a few different dimensions that you can think of your sales job, your sales career in general, and figure out what are the most important dimensions for you, and are you fulfilled in those most important dimensions? And so if like money is the absolute biggest thing for you, then you might experience golden handcuffs, and that's not fun in a sales career. It might be the case, like for me, in one of my jobs, I was working for someone that I didn't consider to be an ethical person. And it's like that trumped
Yeah.
everything else. Cause for me, the ethics and like, I want to believe in the company, the team, the product that I'm selling, just so that I can like sleep soundly at night and not feel like a loser. It's like that came paramount for me. And that's when it became like a very clear shift inside of my psyche, like, all right, it's time to start looking for opportunities and to create new opportunities. And that's something that I'm really excited to touch on like further in the conversation. Is like, I feel like salespeople in general, we underestimate the fact that basically we've been spending our entire professional career building up the skill set that's required to create new business opportunities for us. And it's like that really factors into when you're thinking of these 4 or 5 questions, like, when do you want to leave? It's like, well, maybe it's the right time to create a new opportunity for you. That's what I did in both cases when I left those milestone jobs. So those are some thoughts.
Hands down. That's such an important point, because I know some people on this call have done that, some people haven't, but you don't always have to leave just because there's bait in the water. The right time to leave might be because you want to. So many of us, and this is not just in sales, but it's true in sales a lot, we are willing to jump on new opportunities that are presented to us. Maybe we even think of ourselves as really ambitious because we're so willing to do that. But then if you step back and look at it, you're still always reactive. You're still only jumping at bait instead of saying, I want to create this, and it's totally feasible to do. I think the sales skill set, when translated into a career management skill set, can teach you how to create those opportunities. If you've ever had to draft a custom proposal for somebody, that's exactly the same as writing a custom job rec for yourself. Exactly the same. There's no reason in the world that you have to play inside the walls. And I think this is something that, if you've ever done sales, think about how many times you've, let's say, quote unquote, cheated, right? And I don't mean really cheated, but as an example, I was in medical device for a long time, and there was a hospital, really difficult hospital to get into. The doctor was notorious for stonewalling all sales reps. So I didn't go after the doctors ahead of surgery. Instead, I went after the PTs. If you've ever worked with physical therapists, they're overworked, they're underpaid, it's a really grueling role. So I bought them all lunch, and I hosted a little, just seminar on teaching them how to use certain post-amputation, or just medical device stuff. They loved it. And then I went to that doctor and I just said, hey, by the way, we're doing this educational lunch. We'd love to get your input. And all of a sudden I had a breakfast meeting with him. Now, if you've done that, and every salesperson under the sun has a story like that. If you've done that, there's no reason not to do that in the job hunt. It's just a job hunt. The job hunt process is a sales process. You're just looking for the way in. You're looking for that email. It's so funny. I see great salespeople, and Nick, you can talk to this too, because I've seen even you write this stuff. Here's how to create these great subject lines. There are pages and pages and great conversations about just subject lines on emails to get people to open them. And yet, when it comes time to apply for a role, we don't use those same skills. So what do you see, Nick, what do you see as skills that people are leaving on the table that they should translate into their job hunt, but that are like sales skills that people are just not realizing are in their toolbox?
There's so many of them. Like let's like start at the SDR level. People think that, oh, I'm an SDR, I'm entry level, I'm like beginner. But dude, you're learning like elite business acumen and business skills as an SDR. Like you're learning how to create a value proposition and apply it to an ideal customer profile. And you're learning the mathematics and like the formula foundation of building a pipeline of new opportunities. And like you're using all of these skills to make someone else rich, and you can enrich yourself with those same skills that you learned as an SDR. It's literally all just like a mindset shift of like pulling up a mirror and looking at like, oh wait, everything that I'm doing for this business and making it tons of money, like very profitably, I could just be doing that for myself, creating new career advancement opportunities, creating management opportunities within the same company that I'm working for, or starting entirely new ventures. Like if you level up and you go to account executive, you learn an entirely new sequence of business acumen, right? So you're learning how to professionally manage these relationships, how to have closing conversations, how to like execute on your follow-up game, how to get multiple stakeholders involved, and like getting people promoting your solution to other decision makers within the company. It's like, holy shit, you should be paying to learn all of that. But instead you get like very wealthy doing it.
And but we're jumping around a bit, which I love. But
Mhm.
if everyone was paying attention, that was the answer to number three. You see that question on there, how do I talk about my sales skills in a non-sales context? That was it. Sales is the entry level for all other careers. I feel like you can learn what you need to do to excel in almost any career by starting in sales and learning that. Because even if you were leaving sales and you were trying and you wanted to now go jumpstart a career in another industry, think about the head start you have over people that don't know those things, that don't know how to create. Salespeople are phenomenal at picturing what the other person's going to say, what the other person's going to think, what their objection is going to be. How many times have you gone maybe on an interview and then come out frustrated because you didn't get the role, but you didn't get the feedback? A salesperson knows where they messed up. Salespeople come out of demos and know why they didn't make that sale. It's just a skill set you develop. So we talked about outside the organization. Let me jump back to number two. How would you say when it comes to seeking promotions, right? So in other words, turning that same vision, instead of outward, turning it upward. You're in your own organization. A lot of people, let's say people that think they're ambitious, they take opportunities for promotion that are presented, but how many are creating those opportunities themselves? How many are going to their senior leadership and carving out a new position for themselves? When do you think, when's right, wrong? Like, what's your context for when you would seek a promotion within an organization you wanted to stay with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like the answer to all of this is treat it like a sales process. Um, so first and foremost, you have to have a product that you want to sell. And the product is like your future positive impact on the bottom line of the business when you're inside of this new role. And you want to paint that product with all of the most sexy language and presentation skills. And you want to engage the right decision makers with the right kind of proposal, right? And so
Mm.
what you want to ultimately do is create a value proposition. So when I was an SDR, I was the senior SDR at Reliant Technology, and I saw an opportunity. I'm like, I actually want to lead this team because everyone else is having an extremely hard time. And if I was just coaching them on what I was doing and my processes, like people on the team already came to me for leadership regardless. Like I want to make that happen, and I want to like get the management experience and all of this. So how do you do that? Well, I like did a lay of the land and I surveyed and I was like, all right, so this is all of the problems that we have. We don't have the right tooling. We don't have the right messaging. We don't have the right like consistent training in order to get everyone using the same value proposition instead of it being a barber shop and everyone saying different things. All right, so if I came in board and I offered to solve all of that for you for free. And I did all of that work for you for 30 days and didn't charge you a dime. And I let my results of the team actually booking more demos and like succeeding and everything getting better be the thing that spoke for me. How do you say no to that? It's like you wrap all of that up into a
Oh,
proposal. And I pitched the CEO and he said, okay, let's try it. It's like, it's that easy.
outstanding. And you know what? It's that easy, but there's something, again, we talk about things that salespeople are prepared to do that I think non-salespeople often really struggle with, at least in my experience with clients I've worked with, is this idea of putting some of your own skin in the game before you have any guarantee of getting anything back for it. Salespeople are very familiar with that because salespeople are often, some of them are 100% commission bonus structured, some are majority. And so they recognize that they're going to be doing some work for free because it's part of a larger process. Outside of sales, that's not common at all. So many people who have never done sales really, they freak out about that, about the idea of presenting something. And there's plenty of horror stories out there. So now let me, take off my sales hat, put on my coaching hat for a minute. There are a lot of horror stories out there about companies that request all this free work from you, only to take advantage of it. And there's never really like an offer on the table. I think the difference though is who's initiating. If you're initiating it, you're choosing to do the work. You're never going to get screwed over because it's always you. You might not always land, right? You'll miss sometimes. That just happens. But you'll always be the one in control of the work, which then I think ties into number 4, which you're talk about of what can you do today to create, more career options for yourself tomorrow, is to remember to control that work. So many people, and I wish it wasn't true in sales. I see it in salespeople, and it frustrates me because you'd think you'd know, but people are not keeping track of their own careers. They're not saving their numbers. They're not, writing down their process. They're not creating documentation for things. No one else will care as much as you do. It pained me, but I had a client once who left a sales organization after 10 years, staying in the sales industry. And they said, hey, they're now ready to move to this higher level, all these really high level positions. And they were all asking, well, we need to see a record. We need to see a record of your success, of your performance. Very common at that level. And he didn't have it. And when he went back to his he kind of didn't leave on great terms. So when he went back to his old managers, they either weren't willing or they dragged their feet. And I said, you should have been keeping track of that. No one else, you can't count on anyone else to say, yeah, let me just put together a report of your performance in the last 10 years. You have to do it. And I know, obviously, Nick, you're a very live out loud kind of person, but what do you say to people who ask, how do I do that? How do I create this roadmap for myself, this guidebook, this ongoing living record? What's a top tip for doing that?
I feel like I didn't do A+ at that myself, so I'm not like the qualified expert of like, here's how you build the full track record. I would definitely take screenshots of your CRM that shows you on the top of the leaderboards and have those like time stamped and so on.
Yeah.
That was one very easy, like compelling thing. Like as soon as I left Reliant, I was looking for other opportunities and I could just send the hiring manager a screenshot and say like, here's me 170% of quota. Like, can I talk to you about this opportunity? And he's like,
Oh,
okay.
that's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing. And so many people wouldn't think of that.
yeah. So that's like one example. It's like there's so many other like little extracurricular things that you can do within a company that are kind of like soft things that are maybe a little bit harder to document. But what hiring managers care about is like raw data and numbers. Like, were you on the top? Are you the best? Like, I want the hire the best. Logan says, I'm gonna go do that right now.
Right. So that's what I mean. This is the great element of getting all these people together, is things that seem like small things to you are going to blow somebody else's mind because nobody knows it all. And this is true. Again, this is sales mindset for even non-sales careers, because your work is hard to prove after the fact. I once did a seminar where it was for people who were very new to their careers. It was mostly young people, 6 months to a year into their career. And I said, hey, how many of you think you're good at your job? Everybody raises their hand. I said, good, everyone should raise their hand. I said, now, how many of you could prove to me that you're good at your job in a way that actually has some context to it? Because everybody says they're good at their job. Everybody says they're smart. Everybody says they're creative. Everybody says they're a team player. Everybody says they're good at their job, which makes those meaningless statements. because if everybody says them, even if they're true, they're meaningless because people who it's not true for will still say it. So how do you separate yourself? And that's it, it's proof. And a screenshot of a CRM leaderboard is one thing, but if you're not in sales, hey, a screenshot of a Slack message telling you did a great job, like, hey, really way to nail that presentation on this, boom, screen cap that, put it in your brag book, because those things go away and other people won't save them for you. So I think let's open up a little bit. Nick and I can keep talking too, but I want to get some other folks involved. If you're thinking about a sales career at any level, right? Are you thinking about wanting that track all the way to VP of sales, right? Or are you looking at an entrepreneurship track of starting your own organization? Are you, like Nick said, are you out to maximize money? Are you out to, I've met more people doing this than you realize, are you out to do 4 to 5 years in sales and then exit because you want to do this thing of building a foundation into another career track? No matter what you want to do, I'm sure there's questions. This is a great group to workshop those questions with. What kind of things do you want to know about career development? Not just about sales skills, because you're all probably fantastic at sales. What do you want to know about the career development side of things? And some things to think about on that are a question that I would often ask any of my clients, whether sales or not. Do you know right now what your 1-year plan is? Do you have a track for even just the next 365 days that says, here's the milestones I want to hit. Here's how I know I'll be successful. Here's how I will be able to look back in 1 year and say I've made at least a year's worth of progress. Because probably everybody in their life has at some point looked back 1 year and said, I have not made 1 year's worth of progress in the past year. Believe me, as a career coach, I have talked to a lot of people who this was that year. And they looked back and said, I have not seen a year's worth of progress. Some people I've talked to have said, I have not seen a year's worth of progress in the last 5 years. So do you know what that looks like? Do you know what a year's worth of progress should be looking like for you? All right, we've got this question here from Christina. How can you prove yourself to senior level people at a new organization that you just joined? How do you sell your ideas to them when they don't know you yet? You're the new kid, right? You've got to bring that in. I have some thoughts on this, but Nick, do you have thoughts first? Or you want me to go first?
Yeah, no, I'd love to contribute first. So, like pre-COVID, there was one really good answer that I liked that a mentor of mine gave me, which was like, be seen as the first to show up and the last to leave, which is like that blew my mind. And like every day I was there from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. It was like, that was just like the rule. It's like, okay, that makes perfect sense. I'm going to make sure that the C-level people leave before I do, so that they know that I'm still learning and working and growing and trying to make the money and all of these things. In the Zoom universe, that's a little bit more difficult, but it's like, be the one who takes exceptional effort consistently and make that exceptional level of effort your baseline expectation. Like, screw the expectations that are given to you by your boss and for your role. Whatever they give you, multiply that by at least 110%. Not meaning like go crazy, do double, but just like increase it by 10%. People notice when you're putting in the extra sweat equity and the elbow grease and just like showing up and making it happen consistently every day. And that level of like enthusiasm and activity stands out to senior level people at any organization.
Absolutely. And I have two that I would add to it, two things that you can really do to help stand out. One, in addition to that sort of, sweat equity, put your skin in the game, right? Commit to things, have your name on them. Don't seek to, and put your name on them ahead of time, right? Don't just say after something is successful, hey, this was me. Put your name on things when you first make the attempt and be ready to own either direction it goes. That shows people you're invested. It shows people that you have real drive, that you're willing to be out there. But also ask a ton of questions. If you're very, very focused on, I have good ideas and I want other people to hear those ideas, I want people to act on those ideas, it's great. How people will listen is, I don't know if you've ever heard of this concept called Chesterton's fence. A Chesterton's fence is just an old parable, but the term is for wanting to change things before you know exactly why they are the way they are. And you can come into a situation and say, this looks dumb to me, I want to change it. And you might be right, But if I've been here for a long time and I know the history and I know why this thing is the way it is, and you're totally unwilling to engage with it as it is and learn it first, then it feels like I can't trust your ideas yet. But if instead you come in and you ask 20 questions and you are really involved and you really want to absorb that knowledge and you clearly want to draw a lot of information from your environment, then I trust you. Then you're somebody that's engaged in the process and you've shown your intelligence and you've shown your commitment to that. Now, when you put ideas back out, I say this idea is coming from an informed person. This idea is coming from somebody that knows their environment, that's learned. They didn't just come in and kick the door in and immediately start shouting out ideas without learning anything. They clearly are basing their ideas. There's a little trick too. You ask a bunch of questions, and then before you present your idea, you say, okay, based on all the feedback I've gotten, and then you present your idea. It doesn't even matter if you already had the idea before you came in. Just saying it like that will get people in.
That's brilliant, dude. I like all of that. Something that occurred to me as you were speaking too is like there's always opportunities to make improvements above and beyond just like what your role expectation is, and then that kind of like forward thinking really impresses the heck out of senior leadership, right? Because there was a time, just as a quick story aside, when I was working at Reliant, like our marketing engine broke like completely. Like we used to send email blasts out to a ton of people, and then suddenly our email open rate went from like 14% to like 4% overnight, and no one was talking about it, but no leads were coming in. And so I was literally there like opening up every single like email statistic available for the past year and comparing like subject line to like subject line and like building out a spreadsheet and a presentation to show senior management like, hey, alarm bell like just got really bad and we need to fix this now or else like the company's not going to make money. And it's like that was very well received by our VP of sales, who very much likes to make money from those emails. And that's not at all, no one has to do that kind of work. But if you're the one who does that kind of work and stays up late and like doesn't just bitch and say the emails are broken, but says like the emails are broken, here's the statistics that prove it, here's a couple of suggestions, like we need to like get to the bottom of why this happened and make some kind of shift in Pardot most likely. It's like that's the kind of thinking that people appreciate.
Solutions oriented, absolutely. And just reminded me of the leads are weak, you're weak. The Glengarry again, Ross.
Yeah.
So what are some things to keep in mind for people considering transitioning into sales? First thing to keep in mind to do it. But I think the second thing to keep in mind is that sales recruiter. So I was a sales recruiter for a long time. I built sales teams for my organization, for other organizations. My job for a long time was to fly to new cities and hire all the salespeople and train all the salespeople. So a lot of my background comes specifically from looking for people that had not done sales before. I loved scouting talent from unknown organizations. You know what I would do whenever I landed in a new city and I'm looking for really great sales talent, often entry-level sales talent? I go to every restaurant in the city. Really great like servers, waiters, waitresses are really great salespeople. I would go to Chick-fil-A. I would be able to hire at least one rock star salesperson out of every Chick-fil-A. Salespeople are willing, sales recruiters and sales managers are willing to take a lot more chances than a lot of other hiring managers. And they respect boldness, a lot of other hiring managers, because the salespeople are performance-based so quickly. The risk is often lower. You can take a risk on a salesperson hire more than in almost any other department because the rubber's going to hit the road really quickly. So if you're trying to transition, into a new industry, you have to do a lot of proof. You have to do a lot of social proof. In sales, often that social proof is just taking the risk, being bold. And if you can sell the sales manager on giving you a chance, you're already there, right? So just being able to get in front of that sales manager. So this is why don't worry so much about the social rules, right? Go find their personal email address and send it to them because they respect the hustle. There's obviously lines you don't necessarily want to cross. Don't like spray paint hire me on their car windshield or something like that. But you can do these bolder, more gutsy moves because that's exactly what they want to see in the organization anyway. So do things that are unusual and don't be afraid of doing things that are unusual. What are your thoughts on that, Nick?
Yeah, I want to like agree and amplify with that, because like the way that I advise people, even if they're already salespeople, to get their new next opportunity is to build out a spreadsheet that has a list of all the direct emails of hiring managers at companies that you're excited to work for, and like record yourself, do a quick 1 minute video that's like, hey, what's up, Johnny? My name's Nick, super passionate about getting into sales and XYZ. Here's two things you need to know about me. I'm a super hard worker, I'm crazy motivated, and I think outside the box. That's why you see me on video right now. So if you'd like to talk about the open account executive role, I got a link to my calendar below. I hope to talk to you soon. Thanks. Have a great day. And it's like just taking the effort to make that quick personal introduction, like in a video format with like the little thumbnail, like inside of the video. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen that. That's the way to go. You now stand out from 99.9999% of all sales applicants that they have ever interacted with. And it's incredible how few people do it and how big of an impact it makes on the hiring manager when you first reach out. So that's
I'm so glad you said that, Nick, because I hammer that point home. And she even made the comment in the chat of you guys do these videos. I hammer that point home a lot. I'm really glad you heard it from someone that isn't me, so that you see the reinforcement. But it's also good to understand why video, because there's two reasons. One, sales is a very interactive format. You're going to be using your voice, your face, your personality a lot. So showing it off is good, showing off that you can do it. But more than that is that it's weird. Here's the thing about the video advice. If video was the standard, that wouldn't be good advice anymore. Because the point is that it's good because it's weird. It's good because you stand out, which means you can do other things that stand out too. There are other ways to stand out besides video. Someone from actually back in the practice days FedExed a USB drive with his resume on it and a handwritten letter about why he admired the CEO. And if you pay for FedEx Direct, they have to sign for it. So he essentially forced his way into the CEO's office by sending a package the CEO needed to sign for. And then is one, and that's $12. You're not going to spend on every single opportunity, but the ones you really believe in, $12 is a small price to pay to get in front of somebody and have their attention. And that CEO picked up the phone immediately. So it's doing something bold. It's doing something unusual. It's doing something to set yourself apart, because that's exactly what salespeople have to do all the time. Just because you have, and this was something I saw so many salespeople would be frustrated with when I trained salespeople, is they would come back to me after a day, maybe they'd lose a demo, something, and they'd say, I don't understand. Our product or our service is perfect for them. It's exactly what they need. Why didn't I make the sale? Why didn't they go for it? And it's because just being the perfect product isn't enough. You've got to, it's the perfect product. They don't. You've got to make that connection, bridge that gap. And sometimes you have to do that in a weird way, because guess what? People's defenses are up. Their walls are up. And their walls are up when you're selling them something, and their walls are up when they're hiring. Those sort of social defensive walls are exactly the same. So the skills that get around those walls are the same too. So it's really helpful to do something unusual. And I encourage everybody that feels like they wouldn't be comfortable with a video to try it out, right? Send a video to yourself, send a video to a friend, send a video to me, right? I encourage it. But even if it's not, be bold. But yeah, so some of these bold things, feel uncomfortable coming from a non-sales background. It's like unspoken rules that vary by industry. And that's so true. And that's why I think that sales is so valuable. There are absolutely different social rules across different organizations. I mean, lawyers don't behave the same way as marketing people, right? And doctors don't behave the same way as salespeople. There are these kind of social conventions, but that's often a helpful piece, is what do you bring from your old industry to this one? So if you're looking to switch any sort of industry or any sort of kind of career path, look at what things you have that you bring with you. What do you have in your back pocket that maybe typical salespeople don't have, right? Because everybody's got, Nick and I obviously we talk a lot about salespeople as if they are superhumans, but that's just because we are. But it's often the case that there are blind spots and weaknesses everywhere. And so coming from a different type of industry or background and being able to bring that is often key. I see really great salespeople often come from a background in the product or service that's being sold on the production side or on the engineering side or on the delivery side. Maybe somebody that just really knows the customer base really, really well. So, if you're selling a solution into skilled nursing facilities, because I did that in medical device for a while, somebody who worked as a physical therapist, or as, who had that additional real deep empathy and real deep knowledge of the populace, made a great salesperson because they could talk the language, they knew the background really well. So look at what you may be bringing in with you. What was your, Nick, I would say, did you have any particular background before Reliant or anything like that? Did you have any particular background on that stuff, or were you a clean slate coming in?
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to college and I was going to pursue a computer engineering degree. And I was going to community college at first, and I was like a couple classes short of getting the associate's degree. And I dropped out to pursue entrepreneurship, my first business. And that was buying and selling precious metals and rare coins and coin collections and stuff like that.
Oh, neat.
Um, so neither of those things really tied in very clearly to like data storage hardware and data center like support. Um, but it all built up. I guess I could make a couple of connections actually. Like the engineering background, I was like dealing exclusively with IT director, CIO, like very technical people, tech savvy, smart, quick on their feet, and then a little bit of business acumen from like actually owning a business and selling coins and wares online and stuff. And so it's like you can draw if you think that your lack of experience in a particular industry is a reason why you should not approach that industry, just know that that is made up bullshit in your own head
Oh
and has
yeah.
nothing to do with like your ability to succeed in a new domain. If anything, human beings are like creatures that step into new domains and quickly rise to competence. That's like what humans do. So
Right. It's like learning a language. They always say you do immersion, right? You jump in, which I think is another reason why sales is such a great learning curve. You want to learn about a subject, then just go sell that thing, right? If you want to learn about a particular technology or a particular service, anything, because the questions that you will get are these really hard hitting questions. People on the other side of a sales conversation are asking you tough questions. They're not throwing softballs at you. They're not asking gimme questions. And if you are really committed to saying, I'm gonna find the answer to every question I get asked, I'm gonna know it. I'm gonna be that subject matter expert so that I'm never caught with my pants down. That is how you become great. You're willing to jump in and learn those things. So asking, looking at what you draw from in your history, it's not just about skill set. It's not just about what your actual background expertise is. I think there is, like Nick said, this background in just wanting to learn more things, wanting to be ambitious about it, wanting to do the things that other people don't want to do. I think that's actually a sales mindset by itself, is wanting to do, recognizing that there's value in things that other people don't want to do. There was once a just really phenomenal, if anyone's familiar with Mike Rowe, who used to be of the host of Dirty Jobs fame and now has a number of charities. He talked about how he used to interact with all these people who worked in like clean septic tank solutions. He said, and they were all millionaires. He said, every guy in dirty overalls driving a septic tank truck is a millionaire, because there's a lot of money or success, depending on how you want to define success, but there's a lot of success in doing things that most other people don't want to do, whether it's because they're nervous, because they're afraid, because it's dirty, because it's unpleasant, whatever it is. And that's how I became a recruiter. Actually, was I found even within sales, nobody in my sales organization wanted to train or hire, because it took away from their money time. Right, having a junior person shadow them for the day would cost them sales. It would cost them time. Doing interviews cost them sales, cost them time. It was all these things that they didn't want to do because it was cost time. And I found them enjoyable, but I also saw the long-term potential, because just between me and everybody on this call, I'm like an okay salesperson. I was pretty. Nick's talking about screenshots of him being 170% of quota. That was never me. But I have plenty of screenshots of my team in the number one spot every single time, because I knew how to build, I knew how to manage, I knew how to recruit, I knew how to find good salespeople, and everyone else hated doing that. So I thought, okay, if I do all the interviews for everybody, because our organization had a requirement that everyone had to do X number of interviews. I said, if I take them over for everyone, and I do this unpleasant thing no one else wants to do, I get first pick. I get first pick of every great candidate. And so my team is going to have the best salespeople on it. So even though it's a short-term loss, my paycheck is going to suffer because I'm not out there in the field selling as much. My long-term paycheck is going to be great because I'm getting the best people out of the recruitment pool and they're all going to be on my team. And I'm going to be able to train them. I'm going to be able to manage them. So finding what other people don't want to do is a big part of it. All right, so say I don't have much experience with closing deals on my own. What are some ways I can show competency in that area as I look for an account executive role coming from background of startup inside sales? Okay, so from sort of the SDR spot and moving up into that, I'm going to kick this one to you, Nick, because this is your like bread and butter.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that, like, first of all, in principle, it is pretty difficult to line things up. Difficult is not impossible. We'll talk about the art of the possible in a sec. It's very difficult to line up an opportunity if you're an SDR to like move up and laterally into the account executive role, because hiring managers tend to want closing experience when they hire closers. However, there are ways to sell yourself in such a way that you can kind of circumvent that. If you can show like, no, you don't understand, like long term, this is an excellent bet for the company, because if you give me this experience, I'm such a freaking rock star at drumming up new opportunities that I will more than pay for, you know, any gap or lapse in training. And I quickly can learn to do this because I have all of the foundations that are required. And so presenting yourself in a way that makes that very clear, and then drawing on like ancillary experiences of like, when I was in high school, I was closing kids on candy bars. I was closing kids on laser pens. And that was easy because there were products that I knew that were freaking valuable in the marketplace that I wanted to sell and they wanted to buy. It was like, let's, you know, it's natural. Um, but aside from that, I know Logan personally. And so I know a little bit extra about this predicament that he's in. He actually does have a little bit of closing experience, which now makes everything exponentially easier. Like, you don't have to even worry about like trying to invent and paint and sell yourself as this high potential future closer. It's like, no, you talk about like, I've managed deals and have been directly a strategic advisor on deals of X amount that have reached the finish line. And as an SDR, I personally booked the meeting with like, I forget, I won't say, it's like a big Fortune 500 logo that ultimately closed for X amount. And like, I shadowed multiple senior enterprise reps as they were walking through this closing process with like 6-figure deals. It's like, that's not something that everyone has the ability to say, Logan, like, you've got this. Anytime that
No,
you're ready, you've got it.
absolutely. And I mean, look at how easily somebody with that kind of record can point to the direct ROI on hiring them. You know, in so many roles, it's very difficult to say, here's how much money the company made off of me. You know, you kind of have to extrapolate it based on total profitability of the company. It's difficult. In sales, you can say, here's what they paid me in a year. Here's what they made from me in a year, right? That's a great ROI. But this
Boom.
is also, this comes back all the way back to that question number one on the screen here. Sometimes that's an indicator of it being time to leave. I'm not saying guarantee. I'm not saying that the first time you get a no from within your organization, it's time to quit. But it is time to look. It is time to see what's out there in the organization, in sales in particular. Um, there's always somebody hiring for the next level up, even if it's not your own company. If your company isn't ready for you to be an account executive or whatever the next level is, wherever you are, somebody is. And that doesn't mean you necessarily have to jump right away, but you should look, because looking and being aware and having these conversations, again, it keeps your pipeline open. It keeps multiple deals percolating in the pipeline. It lets you know what the value of your sort of relative status and performance is. How do you even know if you're the one being unrealistic or if your company is being unreasonable if you aren't out there exploring what's on the marketplace? You know, maybe you explore in the marketplace, you come back and you find out, hey, I'm actually making 25% more here than I would be able to make anywhere else. Time for me to really drill down. Or you might look around and say, wow, I've been in this role seeking this promotion for 2 years, let's say, and at this other organization, people with stats that aren't half as good as mine make AE in a year. You know, you never know. And then you look a little deeper and say, maybe it's because there's other deeper problems in that organization. Maybe there's not. But the chances of one organization being the perfect fit for you at every level of your career is very slim. Organization A might be perfect for you when you're an SDR and learning this role. Organization B might be better when you're in the AE and carving out your territory. And then organization C might have, better contacts and better industry connections when you want to move to the next thing. And in sales in particular, this is not a dangerous proposition. People tend to be a lot more understanding of looking at a resume that has, a job change every few years in sales, because we get it, right? When you're not in sales, people say, well, why did you leave this organization? Why'd you leave this organization? When you're in sales, why'd you leave this organization? More money. Why'd you leave this organization? More money, better promotion, like just better opportunities. And we get that. So always be ready to, again, this goes back to what we talked about earlier of your career management. No one will care about your career as much as you do. Even if you work on a great team, and even if they do care about you, they always care about you mixed with their personal agenda and their company agenda, right? They might want you to make AE, and they might want you to make AE on a 3-year timeline because that's what works for them. And they're kind of mixing it, best of both worlds in their view. But you could be at that next level, carving out more of your career much faster, maybe if you went to a different organization. You never know. But you can always impress somebody by boldness. I'm reminded of the story from someone I hired. We had this was in pharmaceutical sales, and we had a pretty substantial base salary. It wasn't, amazing, but it was decent. And we had a very good commission structure, like 15% of everything sold. And I interviewed this woman, and we made her the offer, and she came back and said, scrap the base salary and make it 25% commission. So that is somebody confident, right? That is somebody that really believes themselves. And that kind of bold claim can really make somebody pay attention to you. So if you're looking to reach out and say, hey, how do I prove that I can be a closer? So again, in this context, Nick says that you are, but even if you weren't, right, and you were doing this sort of speculative proof, put your skin in the game. Say, I'm willing to put myself on the line for how good of a closer I am. I know I can do it, so I'm willing to sacrifice in some other area for the opportunity.
That's a really, really good idea. Holy cow. The only thing that comes to mind to complement that too is like, if you can show a significant enough track record of like sincere interest, whether you're trying to do it laterally or within the same organization, right? Like trying to move from SDR to AE, like shadow your senior AEs and ask to sit in on them on demos, on closing conversations, jot down notes, and like have a library of notes that you've taken from that experience that you can then present to a future hiring manager and say like, look, you're asking me like, how am I going to be profitable to the company if I move into this role? It's like, here's my notes. I know exactly what to do. You don't even have to train me. I am ready to rock. That's something else.
Be your own workforce manager. There are in other, because it's so hard to put dollars and cents on the performance of a lot of other roles, there are entire support roles that just do that, right? There's entire support roles that just measure the efficacy of the marketing team or the efficacy of the tech team even, are we spending too much money on our IT department? That's really tough to measure. It's really tough to put dollars and cents on an IT person, because if they're doing their job great, nothing ever goes wrong. So it's tough to measure how effective they are. In sales, a little different. So if you do that for yourself, you say, here's my own promotion track. And we're coming full circle on so many of these. When I asked, do you have a plan for your next year? Do you know what success for you looks like in a year? It doesn't have to mean what does success look like in a year. It means, what does success look like for a year? In that time, how many senior people do you want to shadow, have lunch with, and then have them leave with a good impression of you? That's a great two-way street. You gained something there in terms of skill set, but also now you have somebody that knows. I'm going to tell a story from my days in financial sales. I was new into financial sales. I had started to work on one campaign. I'd been hired on one campaign, and very quickly after I'd been hired, the campaign just came to an end. So all the new class organization, the new class of people in the organization got brought into a room, and they said, hey, we have several new campaigns we're going to kind of split everybody up onto. Unless anybody has any strong preference, we're probably just going to do it randomly. And if anybody has any questions, they can ask. Or if anybody has any questions they want to ask in private, feel free. And this is the CEO that was given this presentation, group of about 35, 40 of us. And I just raised my hand. Actually, I do have a question I could ask in private. Do you mind? He said, no, not at all. We step out of the hallway. And I said, I'm just curious which of those campaigns has the best likelihood for promotion and advancement. And he pointed out, oh, this campaign definitely, but why did that need to be a private question instead of a public one? I said, oh, I just wanted to introduce myself. How are you? I shook his hand and introduced myself. So now this guy gets this funny anecdote and he remembers me. And, of course, it went the way I wanted it to. And I became a manager in that company very quickly. Those kinds of things get people to know you. It's not just about what you want to know. It's also about who knows you. One rule that my old sales manager, one of my first sales managers taught me is that if you walk into any sales organization and you poll the group, you poll the sales floor and you say, who is the next person that's going to get promoted? And you just ask them their opinion. Like ask the entry level people or the sales floor, who do you think is the next person to get promoted? They will always be right. They will always be right because the person that they think is going to get promoted, there's a reason they think that. And it's because it's a person that is consistently doing really well, is consistently, like Nick said, they're early, they're late, is consistently asking great questions, all the things we talked about. And they said, oh, Nick's the guy that does all of that. I think it's probably going to be Nick's the next guy to get promoted because you know what? He's always asking great questions in the sales meetings. He's always really engaged. He's always the first guy here. He's always at the top of the leaderboard. He's not arrogant about it. He helps other people. He helps other people that are struggling. So yeah, I'd bet it's going to be Nick. Well, guess what? Of course it's going to be Nick. If your reasons for thinking that are the reasons that it's going to be true. So if everybody knows who you are, it's likely to be you. That's true in an organization from a promotion standpoint, and it's true across organizations in an industry from a recruitment standpoint, from a headhunting standpoint. The people that do exactly that on a larger scale, the people that are helping people that aren't even in their industry because they're on, maybe they're doing, I don't know, organizing mastermind calls and helping people improve their skill sets, right? Those are the people that organizations notice, that they headhunt, that they look for. I mean, even honestly, in helping to organize this, right? Nick was an easy guy to find, right? The reason that Nick and I are on this call together is because Nick and I are both easy guys to find that found each other, right? So these are the things you want to do for yourself. This is what it comes down to, that career management. So what can you do today to create stronger options tomorrow? It's this stuff. It's make sure that your name is out there positively, right? Don't do things that are going to tarnish your name. Your name is so important in any industry, but I think in sales more than any other. People buy from people. So your name, your reputation is so important. Get it out there, shout it. That goes back full circle to another thing about putting your name on things before you've succeeded with it, because you're willing to put your skin in the game, being willing to put your name out there and say, I am building this, not I have already built it, but I'm in the process of building this. These are all things that create that career path for yourself. We are really close to time here. So I'm going to do there's a little spiel here, and I'm going to let Nick talk about his and I'll talk about mine. But as a little advertisement at the end of this call, we've got 2 new resources, one from Nick, one from myself. I think both are going to be awesome. They're going to work great in tandem. I think everybody should do both of them. Nick, do you want to talk about yours first? You want to give a little preview commercial?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, first of all, this was a lot of fun. You guys asked awesome questions. Super grateful for the chance to connect with you guys. And yeah, just was a blast, Johnny. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mastermind Army. So what I run every week and what I've run like for years now is an elite mastermind community. It started off as like entry-level salespeople. Now it's all like elite, really good, high quality salespeople. And increasingly like entrepreneurs are coming into the group as well. And what we do is we basically meet every single week for at least an hour. Sometimes the call like blends on for like 2 or 3 hours because we actually have fun doing this. We get together and we help each other solve problems in our pipeline, business, career, personal life sometimes too. It's like a tight-knit group. It's a great group. And what happens when you put a whole bunch of independently smart, successful people in the room and you laser focus everyone's genius on solving your problem, you get 20 different perspectives that you never would have thought of on your own, all in a super concentrated, fast format. And it is insanely fun. It's the highlight of my week every week. If you want to learn more, go to mastermind.army, put your email into the newsletter, reach out to me. You can reach out. I'll drop my email directly in the chat as well for folks if anyone wants to reach out. But yeah, love meeting new people.
We'll include it in the follow-up email too.
Okay, perfect.
So if anybody doesn't get it from the chat, don't worry. Everyone that's on this call and then RSVP is going to get this recording, as well as we'll include links at everybody's email.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah,
and
that's an open resource for you. That's all.
Great. And then in that email as well, you're also going to get we're launching the Amlavita Sales Career Hub. So there's a lot of great resources. Like I said, Nick's probably the best one for learning the sales skills, solving the sales problems. I wanted to put something together for sales career management. So not something for the skill set, but something for people sharing those networking tips, those job hunting tips, kind of an elite secret society of people in the sales world sharing great opportunities with one another, talking about exactly this. How do we manage, how do we manage those great opportunities? How do we negotiate? Something comes up, you say, hey, I've got a promotion right in front of me, but I'm also trying to be headhunted by another company. How do I choose between the two? And that same concept of having a whole community of people in to help you evaluate those decisions, to give you great tips, to really laser in on those problems, but focused on the career management side. Because if you are as good of a sales professional as you will be, especially in the Mastermind Army, then it would be a tragedy for you to languish and not be getting the maximum out of that from your skill set, right? If you are that valuable, you should be getting in exchange from the world equal to your success. So we're going to be sending 2 follow-up emails. You're going to get 1 follow-up email right away, just with links to our email address as well as a recording of this. But on March 1st, I'm going to be sending out an email that's going to have the links to both of these things. Everybody, Nick, I really cannot thank you enough. This has been a great conversation. It's phenomenal. I'm so glad we got this recording. There was a lot of gems in here. Thank you to everybody that came. This was a blast. This is a format we don't do a whole lot. I really enjoyed it. I would not mind doing this format again. I promise that I will absolutely try to bribe Nick to come back and do them again as well. But it's something that if people enjoyed, please respond to the email. Let us know, because if people really enjoyed it, we're happy to do it again. Everybody, you're all awesome.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Nick, wonderful meeting you. And I hope that we're able to do something like this again, because it was this was really cool to listen to. So thank you guys again for your time, energy, expertise, and for everyone joining us. And Daniel, yes, I'm going to share in the follow-up email. So like John mentioned, we're going to get 2. I will share John and Nick's contact information, LinkedIn, websites, all of that fun stuff in that email. So we'll make sure that you guys are able to stay connected that way. So keep an eye out for both of those. All right. Oh, and the recording too. Yep. All right, everyone. Have a great night. Thanks.
All right. Take care. Have a great night, everyone.